Hello everyone, and welcome back to Poképaint, the series where I draw new Fakémon to inhabit my fan-made Pokémon region based on Florida, the Gladeosian region. Today, before getting back into some of the more important Pokémon for the region, I wanted to make another entry creating just some average Pokémon that you would encounter along your journey, or at least that was my original intention. I originally planned on doing 2 to 3 Pokémon lines that would be based solely on ideas from Florida with no outside theming to further make this Fakémon region feel inspired by the real world place. And though I did do that, additionally all 3 ended up being regional forms or regional evolutions of existing Pokémon, and all Pokémon that would exist in or near the ocean. So today, against my initial intentions, I will be developing a couple of ocean-dwelling Pokémon for you all. The first Pokémon that I have for today is possibly, surprisingly, a Shellos form. Now, yes, I did already do a Shellos form for this region and one based on the Atlantic Ocean. However, since I made the open sea form Shellos almost a year ago, I've wanted to make a counterpart based on the Gulf of Mexico, the stretch of ocean on the western coast of the state. Initially, I was going to only do one, as the Sinnoh region Pokédex said that it was notable that there are 2 types in the Sinnoh region. However, I thought that the idea of there being different Shelloses for each ocean or sea in the world would be an awesome concept to explore in the future of the series. So as I have done an Atlantic one, the Gulf of Mexico also needs one as well. So this Gulf form Shellos, based on the Gulf of Mexico, as you may have guessed by its appearance, is based on oil spills. I don't know if that's just because of when and where I grew up, but I pretty heavily associate that part of the world with oil spills. Looks-wise, I wanted to give this Shellos a pattern that didn't look like oil slick per se, but referenced the look and how oil slick on the water has a rainbow appearance. Gulf form Shellos, the sea slug Pokemon. In the shallow sea west of Gladios, a unique offshoot of the Shellos family can be found. Their outer shell is soft, and when pressed upon, its exterior oozes a thick, sticky sludge. They often take over their area of the ocean, and they are a known pest in coastal areas, as the water quality decreases in their presence, driving wild Pokemon away. If too many Gulf form Shellos gather in one place, the environmental impact can be as bad as or worse than the worst oil spills. So now that we have a second Shellos for the region, we of course need a second Gastrodon. Now I know the original 2 Shellos forms have the same typings and the different looks were more of an aesthetic thing, but if I plan on making a Shellos for every ocean in the future seasons of this series, I felt like giving those forms the opportunity to be new type combinations would make these designs a lot more interesting. This was done a little in my open sea form that was water rock, but this idea is very blatantly displayed here in the poison and ground typing. That typing not only perfectly fits the oil spill idea in my mind at least, but since I also have a lot of water types for this region, I kind of needed an excuse to not make this a water type. These 2 designs came really pretty easily to me, especially because of how I already sort of knew how I wanted to represent Shellos and Gastrodon based on the open sea form that I've done already. But the one aspect of the design that I had trouble with was the head crest ear things. On the original 2, these head crests differ, so it was safe to assume that they would differ on these ones as well. With the open sea one, it was easy because I just made them barnacles. However, for this version, I was stumped for a little bit. Eventually, I decided to go with the space bun type look, as the swirl in the structure referenced the oil slick aesthetic in a similar way to how rainbow stripes did. I also added the green flowy part to this form because I just kind of thought it looked cool. Yeah, sometimes there's no reasoning for something beyond it looked kind of neat. Gulf form Gastrodon, the sea slug Pokemon, and the evolved form of Shellos. Their soft, slick skin is toxic to the touch and must be kept wet at all times. If a Gastrodon's skin dries out, they will wither and become stiff. For this reason, people from the Gladeosian region and other regions surrounding the inner sea there use oil baths to keep their Pokemon's skin healthy. They feed off of oil deposits deep under the ocean floor, and as such they will repeatedly seek them out. It is for this reason that trainers in the oil mining industry will often have this Pokemon by their side. Now, my next idea was one that I've had for a really long time. Actually, I was originally meaning to put it in my regional forums video way back, but I ran out of time for that one, so we're doing it now. And that is a bull shark regional form of Carvanah and Sharpido. Bull sharks are a very common species of shark in Florida, and they are well known for two sort of frightening abilities. The first is that they are way stronger and territorial than more aggressive famous sharks like the great white, and the second is that some species of them can breathe in both fresh and salt water. So yeah, I guess there's just no escaping these guys. As could probably be expected by now, you can guess the way that I wanted to go with this. I immediately had this idea of taking the bull shark name literally with the idea to give a shark bull horns. So that was exactly what I did, at least with Sharpido, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. My version of Carvanah I actually did after Sharpido, so I had a pretty good sense of where the design was going, so I felt more free to experiment a little bit. I added a lot of bull shark related features, like in the look of the tail and on the dorsal fin, but more obviously I wanted to give it the face shape of a bull skull, as not only does that represent the animal that the design references, but it also exhibits the fact that the bull skull is a very popular cultural symbol in the southern US. Which is maybe not a direction that the Pokemon Company would go, but I felt like it made it look a lot more intimidating, which, after all, is kind of the bull shark's whole thing. Actually, come to think about it, the Pokemon Company has done skulls multiple times before, so maybe it's not super out there. Carvanah, the bull-fish Pokemon. They school in massive numbers in certain seasons and ravenously scavenge for any morsel of food that finds its way into the water, living or otherwise. Their jaw strength rivals other powerful Pokemon in the region. In most places in the world, Carvanah live in freshwater where they migrate to the sea where they can evolve. However, in the Gladeosian region, the unpredictable water levels in the environments like estuaries require that Carvanah and Sharpido must live in waters that otherwise they may not be suited for, in other regions for long periods of time. This leads both to the species' ability to travel far up rivers and to inland bodies of water, and for their heightened aggression stemming from the more fierce competition for food away from the open theater of the sea. Funnily enough, I've done a Sharpido form for the last 2 seasons of Poképaint in a row, so who knows, this might become a Meowth situation where I do a Sharpido for every coming season. So for my Sharpido, I of course went with the literal bull shark idea like I said before, and I had the idea of giving it horns. I also initially mostly had a red color palette in mind to communicate the aggressive, angry nature of this Pokemon. However, I eventually decided that the red would make a better accent color against a charcoal blue base. I also decided that I would pose this Sharpido differently, both to better show the bull horns on the top of the head, but also as another way to show the aggressive nature, having it in a charging pose like a bull. Though it's less obvious than in the first form, there's still some bull skull imagery left over, as those nose markings resembled the nasal cavity of a bull skull in its shape and placement. Sharpido, the bull shark Pokemon and the evolved form of Carvanah. One of the few species of Pokemon in Gladios that can be found in both inner waters and beyond the coast, this unique form of Sharpido has developed the ability to survive both fresh and salt water. The most aggressive form of Sharpido, it uses its iron-tough horns to ram boats and Pokemon alike. It is highly territorial and will often get into fights with other aggressive water Pokemon like Mohissan. My original plan was to be done after these 3, but I've been wanting to do a Manatee Pokemon for this region, and since Manatees are from Florida, and so where I ended up accidentally doing all aquatic Pokemon for this video, I decided that this would be the right video to do this design in. I had the idea that this Pokemon would be an ice and psychic type, with a plant growth on its back representing the algae that grows on real-life manatees, and that this special algae would somehow give its psychic powers, along the lines of how Galarian Slowbro gets its psychic powers from the toxins in its shell. Its expression I imagined to be a Muna Musharna situation, where it would be drowsy due to its psychic powers, mimicking the demeanor of the real-life animal. Originally I planned on this being its own Pokemon, but I soon realized that I had an opportunity to make a Seal and Dugong evolution, which would finally give this boring line the edge that it desperately needs. So on went the longer evolution of the Dugong Horn. This also helped me include more ice types to the very lacking list so far, as behind the scenes I've been parsing out which main series Pokemon will be part of the Pokedex, and the only ice types I have so far are Glaceon and Crabominable, neither of which start out as ice types, so I guess this is a win. For the name, I came up with what I believe to be a pretty clever one, which matches the non-creative names of the previous two evolutions. In the same way that Seal is supposed to be a reference to sea and sound like seal, but really doesn't, but that doesn't matter, and how Dugong is a combination of Dew and Dugong, a Manatee evolution would have the name Manatee, where the mana chunk would be in reference to psychic powers by including the word mana and T for Manatee. As manatees are so famously friendly in real life, I thought that this would be a really cool opportunity to add a friendship evolution, which I don't know if I've ever done in the past before. I think this is my first friendship evolution. This would also explain away why you can't evolve Dugong in other regions, because it doesn't have a friendship evolution there. Manatee, the friendly Pokemon in the evolved form of Dugong. One of the friendliest Pokemon on the planet, the mild and lethargic Manatee is an evolution of Dugong that were first discovered in the waters just south of Gladios. The algae that grow in the waters here often find their homes on the backs of slow-moving Pokemon like Dugong, but without the ability to scrape the toxic algae off their backs, poisons in said algae affect their minds, causing them to develop psychic abilities upon their evolution. These powers unlock the full capabilities of their brains, allowing for powerful psychic attacks, while also making this Pokemon perpetually sleepy. They float about in shallow waters just beyond the mangrove forests and look like floating islands from the shore. If you swim with a pack of them, expect many hugs from these gentle giants. I hope you all enjoyed watching my process for developing these 5 ocean-dwelling Pokemon today. I had a really good time making them, especially considering my more relaxed timeline that I allowed myself to take, and as a result of said extra time, I'm super happy with how they've come out. More importantly, I'm very excited with what comes next. Throughout the region, I've been referencing a powerful and famous Pokemon that exists here in Gladios, referencing it in the Dreadnought entries, I believe in the Mohissan entry, and in the Sharpido entry today. See if you can guess what this very important Pokemon will be based on in the comments below. I'll give you a hint. This may or may not be this region's pseudo-legendary. You'll just have to wait and find out. But as always, thank you for watching. And thank you to my patrons STE, Alan Michael White, R.O. Bolt, and Griffin for their continued support of Poképaint and other projects like it on the channel. The support truly means the world. If you want to join them in their support, then you can do so on Patreon by getting perks like early access to my videos as soon as they are done for as little as $3 a month. So thank you again to my patrons for your continued financial support, and thank you all for watching. It truly means the world. As always, if you like this video, then leave a like, and if you want to see more like it, then subscribe, and turn on the bell to get notified when I upload next.